Hello, my name is Lisa Alexander, and I'm the founder and executive director of Stand Up Survivor. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to educating, equipping, and empowering survivors of domestic violence and the community. We know that if the community is educated, they have the opportunity to spot domestic violence and help save someone's life. We also know for victims of domestic violence that if they are just aware of what the situation that they are in, we can help empower them to get to safety. Thank you, Victims Voice, for all that you do to help survivors find their voice.
Our next session, we're going to go from college all the way back to middle school. So when domestic violence is suspected in middle school, Nancy Phillips is a friend. She's also a middle school teacher in, yes, I'm going to say it, Central New Jersey. And she's also councilwoman for Hamilton Township. She's super busy. I feel fortunate that she squeezed us in here, but she's got some great eye-opening information. So without further ado, Nancy Phillips. Come on in, Nancy. There we go. All right, you're on mute.
Of course. Okay, I do this all day. You think I have this down?
I know, right? Oh, this virtual learning is a learning curve for everyone.
It is. But thank you so much for inviting me. This has just been, I really enjoyed the last session with Jessica, and it really is a great way to lead into middle school, because we do see this as kind of the emerging time of dating and relationships, both friendships and romantic relationships. So I kind of tried to organize, because I know we only have about 30 minutes. So I'm just going to share my screen and pull up. Let's see if this is going to work. I apologize. Okay. All right, let's hope we can all see that.
We can all see.
All right, so as Sherry had introduced it, we talked about when domestic violence is suspected in middle school. And this can come in different forms, as we said. Sometimes we're working with children and we may suspect that there's something going on at home. But also, as I referenced, we do see this as like an emerging time of dating. I teach 6th grade. I have taught 7th and 8th, but the majority of my career has been 6th. So this is when they start to date. And Sherry and I have had some conversations about what that means to them at that age. As Sherry mentioned, this is just my background. She talked about I've been in middle school for 18 years. I do have experience working in domestic violence and sexual assault as a response team member and community educator, which is what I did before I became a teacher, which has made me more sensitive to these issues as a teacher. So I was going to highlight 3 specific areas. One is sexual harassment and dating violence awareness and prevention, our responsibilities as teachers and our limitations. It sounds like, as I was listening to Jessica, there's a lot more power. Oh, is that you, Sherry?
Hello, this is.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I thought that was something wrong with this. Responsibilities and limitations, meaning we don't have the powers that some of the colleges have. And then teachers and schools as resources. And I really want to end on that, because that's really where I see us as the most valuable resource for families and for women and men in domestic violence situations. Hello?
Hello, this is Sharon at Barbara Search's office.
Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, what is going on? Okay, so I just wanted to highlight, things have changed over the years. When I used to do prevention education, I worked for a domestic violence agency, and I went into elementary schools, through middle schools to high schools, coming from the experience of working with families and working with crisis situations. And I would go in and I would do the educating. Which I think gave me a different perspective in working with teens. It's now become part of the health curriculum. So I think we can imagine as parents or ourselves that it has it's mixed in, in my opinion, it's kind of mixed in with a lot of other things. It doesn't get that real personal touch of really reaching out to the individual students. However, they are educated on, identifying behaviors that would be harmful or not healthy in a relationship. what it might feel like, and ways to deal with it. But even with that, I find that my observations over the years have been that teens and tweens, despite that, still really struggle with identifying an unhealthy relationship or friendship. In preparing for today, I reached out to one of the counselors that I've worked with for many years, and this was a consistent theme that we kind of saw, where with all of the efforts and all of the progress that we've made, whether as a society, within our families, I'm sure many of the women here, I have 2 daughters myself, and all of those values that we want to instill in them with social media and texting and just the modern day society, it feels like there's still this sense of ownership. And that's why I say in 6th grade, I hear that a lot. And that triggers me right away to say, hey, come here, we need to talk about this relationship. Now, as Jessica pointed out, of course, most of the time, we don't find out about whether it's domestic violence at home or dating violence from the person who's experiencing it. A lot of times it comes from a friend. I have to say, social media can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. Most referrals that we get, both for domestic violence, sexual assault, suicide awareness, they come from other peers seeing and hearing what the student is saying on social media. So again, that's why I say it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes that can be the way to control, or they see, just to give you an example, I remember last year working with a student who was just getting text upon text upon text upon text, and felt that they couldn't block the person because then they have to see them in school. And it's such a hard time. It's such an awkward time for these students. So, but these are the ways that, we're really trying, but it's very difficult, I think, in today's day and age to still communicate what that healthy relationship should look like. What does equality look like at the middle school level? So just to explain too, we can be such a great resource. We are a safe space. Teachers are bound by confidentiality, and your counselors at your school are also bound by confidentiality. So when a student may come to me or come to their counselor, or a friend brings them, unless, and this I go into my next slide, but unless we think that that person or someone in that family or a friend is an immediate harm, we can start with counseling the student and providing a safe place. We can be the liaison. They don't know who to turn to. Maybe they don't know that there is a resource available. I find that many families, their first thought is that if the school finds out something's happening, if the teacher finds out, this will come from the child too, that they're afraid that the Department of Family and Children is going to come immediately and investigate, or the school is going to come and investigate. That's not our first priority. As a teacher, the first thing I want to take care of is their emotional needs and help them feel safe. That's been a struggle, I'm sure you can imagine, that we're all having with virtual learning, is worrying about our students. We have the students who won't turn on cameras. We have them that maybe don't participate as much. And I've been very cognizant, and a lot of teachers, of course, are, we don't know what the family situation is, and it's making it more difficult for that connection. In class, we can see maybe that student is having an off day, and that might be the day that they, confide in us that, they're not comfortable at home, something's happening at home. So that goes to my second point. We know as middle school teachers that our students aren't going to learn if they're not emotionally being supported. So that is our first priority. And again, this is where I think when you're not on the teacher side, it may feel like, oh, I feel like, and even as a parent myself, you told your teacher, but the teachers are there to help. Our counselors are always available, and that goes with remote learning as well. So if a child needs, is reaching out, or is struggling, those counselors are on all day and they'll help the student navigate what they need. Again, it's not the first instinct to get other sources involved unless there's immediate harm. Excuse me. Also, there's a lot of other resources that we can help the family connect with. So places for services like Perform Care. Perform Care is a service that will come to your house or they will come to the school and can put in immediate counseling for not just the student, but also for anyone in the family, and do so in a way to make sure that they're keeping them safe. It's not new to us to have one parent come in and say one thing when a child's upset, maybe they're telling us, but trust me when I tell you, the schools have so much experience with different family situations, different various custody agreements, or just even trying to protect the child, because at this age, this is when they are starting to become more independent, and we really want to have that ability to express themselves with it all, not always going right to their parent, right? So we will kind of try to protect them in that way. I think a lot of the families that we've worked with, they're not aware of the resources like the domestic violence agencies that are in their areas. I'm in Mercer County, so Women Aware is a fantastic organization, and we're able to then connect them to those resources. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the Department of Children and Families would be another call. And I can tell you from 18 years of experience, I think every family's biggest fear in disclosing, especially a child, is someone has told them that DIFUS, as it used to be called, or DCF, is going to come and take them out of the home. They're going to come take them away from their mother if she's the one being abused, or the father if he's the one being abused. And I plead with you to not avoid that for that reason, because I personally have seen the resources that they have provided, and rarely, if ever, have I ever seen a removal in a situation like that. So it comes from my heart. It just really, that is something, again, we're talking about children who are in such a transition, and they're so worried about more change. So our job is to try to help provide that security and comfort to them. And this is where I wanted to also emphasize what we can and cannot do. We can't investigate. I know Jessica was saying that they're required to investigate. We're in the opposite situation. Teachers cannot decide to go and investigate whether they think something is happening and go start to investigate that. Counselors cannot investigate. So if they're being told again about a situation, whether the teen is in their own relationship where they feel unsafe, or they're being abused or being harmed emotionally, that's a safe space for them. The only time, again, that we have a legal responsibility to report to DCF or report to, say, our principal, or refer to the counselor and allow them to make that more professional decision, is when we feel that someone is actually being harmed. Now, saying that, sometimes your hands can really be tied because of that. You may feel, or I have felt, pretty sure that there's something going on where I'm really truly worried about my student and their family. I shared with Sherry, my first year teaching, I had a student who had very clear bruises on his upper arms on a pretty regular basis. And again, coming right out of working with victims and families in domestic violence situations and recognizing some of his behaviors in my class, I referred him to the nurse. And that is the only person who might be able to at least do, when I say investigating, it might mean just lifting the shirt to see the bruise. As a teacher, I don't have that ability, nor should I. So a nurse can also be another level of support. I see my nurses, they're not just nurses, they're also counselors. And if you go down on any given day, you're going to see teens hanging out in their nurse's office, because again, it's a safe space. And this is where we can kind of help the student, help the family without having to, I think a lot of people think we're going to call the police. We're going to call, that's not what's going to happen. We want to support them. And of course, it's challenging right now. We've been teaching remotely since March. My district was the first, in fact, to go remote. And it's really, truly difficult. We're worried about our students. I don't know if they're going to reach out. And at the same time, we know that, again, this is where the social media and communication can be a blessing and a curse. There is still communication going on electronically. And it's really important for the public to know, for you to know, that even though we are remotely teaching, the counselors are in the buildings. Counselors are in their homes and available. And all of the services I mentioned are all still there. All the domestic violence agencies have safe houses to go to. And there is all the counseling still available. It is harder for us, though, to make that connection. And I miss that myself. I'm a month in teaching, and I really miss that connection. And I wonder, of course, if they will ever feel as comfortable until we're in person. It's hard to pick up on those cues. And we all know that the level of keeping secrets, especially for teens, they're really good at it. So that goes back to as well, finding out from peers. But it's really a challenging time. I think everybody's home, what can make it worse. And I hope that as more people become aware of the resources that schools have to offer, they'll take advantage of that, because we are a safe space. I'm going to stop sharing here and see if there's any discussion or any questions. I see it's 4:05. I do have my email address here if anyone just wanted to reach out. I don't claim to be any kind of expert. This has been my experience, and I wanted to share it with you. And I'm anxious to see if you have any other questions or discussion.
Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat. We'll give people just a moment to do that.
And Sherry, if you can think of anything that we talked about that I didn't.
I think one of the things that we talked about that was most eye-opening for me was that there's a lot around education with prosecutors, law enforcement, all different kind of groups of people that interact with the victim/survivor community. But teachers don't get that same education. And that's a big missed opportunity. And
that's right. And you're right. I did miss that. I had mentioned, right, that my background was working for years as a crisis team member, as a community educator in domestic violence and sexual assault. So I do have the extra sensitivity. We go through GCN trainings, and I'm sure some people are familiar with these online mandated trainings we go through every year. And the only thing I can say that's included that even touches this on the surface is when we're trained on the HIB laws, which is the harassment, intimidation, and bullying laws.
Yep.
And that's really it. So I think it is a disservice to our families, to our students, that teachers aren't more trained. Because we do receive a lot of training for suicide awareness, which of course, absolutely equally important. But how many of those students maybe have gotten to that point because of being in an abusive relationship? Yeah. And if it could have been recognized sooner, that they could have gotten some counseling, some services prior to that. So I do think I heard Jessica talking a lot about legislation, and I think that that's a really great point, that we should be mandating teachers are more trained to recognize the different signs, and in our students. Because also I think a lot of teachers too don't think in 6th grade that this is happening. I think there's a lot of people who just aren't aware.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they're 12. They're not going to. But we all see what's on the different social media. No matter what I teach my daughters, I'll go on TikTok. I see what's on there.
Yeah.
They're getting a totally different message. So yes, it's out there.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Off to the next thing. But thank you, Sherry. I really think this is such a fantastic way to reach out to the community, and I look forward to working with you more.
Wonderful. We'll start maybe Nancy's Law for education for teachers.
Sounds good to me.